The Jaffna Kingdom, also known as Kingdom of Aryacakravarti, of modern northern Sri Lanka, was a historic monarchy that came into existence around the town of Jaffna on the Jaffna Peninsula after the invasion of Magha, who is identified as the founder of the Jaffna Kingdom and is said to have been from Kalinga in India. Established as a powerful force in the north, northeast and west of the island, it eventually became a tribute-paying feudatory of the Pandyan Empire in modern South India in 1258, gaining independence in 1323 with the fragmentation of the Pandyan control when the last Pandyan ruler of Madurai was defeated and expelled in 1323 by Malik Kafur, the army general of the Muslim Empire Delhi Sultanate. For a brief period in the early to mid-14th century, it was an ascendant power in the island of Sri Lanka when all regional kingdoms accepted subordination. However, the kingdom was eventually overpowered by the rival Kotte Kingdom around 1450 when it was invaded by Prince Sapumal under the Kotte Kingdoms directive. It was freed of Kotte control in 1467. Its subsequent rulers directed their energies towards consolidating its economic potential by maximizing revenue from pearls and elephant exports and land revenue. It was less feudal than most of the other regional kingdoms on the island of Sri Lanka of the same period. During this period, important local Tamil literature was produced and Hindu temples were built, including an academy for language advancement. The arrival of the Portuguese colonial power to the island of Sri Lanka in 1505, and its strategic location in the Palk Strait connecting all interior Sinhalese kingdoms to South India, created political problems. Many of its kings confronted and ultimately made peace with the Portuguese colonials. In 1617, Kankili II, an usurper to the throne, confronted the Portuguese but was defeated, thus bringing the kingdom's independent existence to an end in 1619. Although rebels like Magha with help of Thanjavur Naik Kingdom tried to recover the kingdom, they were eventually defeated. Nallur, a suburb of Jaffna town, served as its capital. History founding the origin of the Jaffna Kingdom is obscure and still the subject of controversy among historians. Among mainstream historians, such as K. M. De Silva, S. Pathmanathan and Karthagesu Indrapala, the widely accepted view is that the kingdom of the Aryacakravarti dynasty in Jaffna began in 1215 with the invasion of a previously unknown chieftain called Magha, who claimed to be from Kalinga in modern India. He deposed the ruling Parikrama Pandyan II, a foreigner from the Pandyan dynasty who was ruling the kingdom of Polonnaruwa at the time with the help of his soldiers and mercenaries from the Kalinga, modern Kerala and Tamila regions in India. After the conquest of Rajarata, he moved the capital to the Jaffna Peninsula, which was more secured by heavy Vani forest and ruled as a tribute-paying subordinate of the Chola Empire of Thanjavur in modern Tamil Nadu, India. During this period, a Malay chieftain from Tambralinga in modern Thailand named Chandrabhanu invaded the politically fragmented island. Although King Parikrama Bahu II from Dambadenia was able to repulse the attack, Chandrabhanu moved north and secured the throne for himself around 1255 from Magha. Saddevaman Sundarapandyan I invaded Sri Lanka in the 13th century and defeated Chandrabhanu, the usurper of the Jaffna kingdom in northern Sri Lanka. Saddevaman Sundarapandyan I forced Chandrabhanu to submit to the Pandyan rule and to pay tributes to the Pandyan dynasty. But later on, when Chandrabhanu became powerful enough, he again invaded the Sinhalese kingdom, but he was defeated by the brother of Saddevaman, Sundarapandyan I, called Veerapandyan I, and Chandrabhanu lost his life. Sri Lanka was invaded for the third time by the Pandyan dynasty under the leadership of Aryacakravarti, who established the Jaffna kingdom. Aryacakravarti dynasty when Chandrabhanu embarked on a second invasion of the south. The Pandyas came to the support of the Sinhalese king and killed Chandrabhanu in 1262 and installed Aryacakravarti, a minister in charge of the invasion, as the king. When the Pandyan Empire became weak due to Muslim invasions, successive Aryacakravarti rulers made the Jaffna kingdom independent and a regional power to reckon with in Sri Lanka. All subsequent kings of the Jaffna kingdom claimed descent from one Kalinga Cakravarti, who was identified with Kalinga Magha by Swami Nanaprakaso and Mudalaya Rasanayagam, while maintaining the Pandyan progenitor's family name. Politically, the dynasty was an expanding power in the 13th and 14th century, with all regional kingdoms paying tribute to it. However, it met with simultaneous confrontations with the Vijayanagar Empire that ruled from Vijayanagara, southern India, and a rebounding kingdom of Kotte from the south of Sri Lanka. This led to the kingdom becoming a vassal of the Vijayanagar Empire, as well as briefly losing its independence under the Kotte Kingdom from 1452. 1467. The kingdom was re-established with the disintegration of Kotte Kingdom and the fragmentation of Vijayanagar Empire. It maintained very close commercial and political relationships with the Thanjavur Naka Kingdom in southern India, as well as the Kandyan and segments of the Kotte Kingdom. This period saw the building of Hindu temples and a flourishing of literature, both in Tamil and Sanskrit. Kotte conquest and restoration. The Kotte conquest of the Jaffna kingdom was led by King Parakramabahu VI's adopted son, Prince Sapumal. This battle took place in many stages. Firstly, the tributaries to the Jaffna kingdom in the Vani area, namely the Vanya chieftains of the Vanamai, were neutralized. This was followed by two successive conquests. The First War of Conquest did not succeed in capturing the kingdom. It was the second conquest, dated to 1450, that eventually was successful. Apparently connected with this War of Conquest was an expedition to Adriampat in modern South India, occasioned according to Valentin by the seizure of a Lankan ship laden with cinnamon. The Tenkasi inscription of Arakasari Parakrama Pandya of Tinnevelly, who saw the backs of kings at Singai, Hanri, and elsewhere, may refer to these wars. It is dated between A.D. 1449–50 and 1453–4. Kanakasurya Singhayari and the Aryacakravarti king fled to South India with his family. After the departure of Sapumal Kumra to Kotte, Kanakasurya Singhayarian retook the kingdom in 1467. Decline and dissolution. Portuguese traders reached Sri Lanka by 1505, where their initial forays were against the southwestern coastal Kotte Kingdom due to the lucrative monopoly on trade in spices that the Kotte Kingdom enjoyed that was also of interest to the Portuguese. The Jaffna Kingdom came to the attention of Portuguese officials in Colombo for multiple reasons, which included their interference in Roman Catholic missionary activities, and the support to anti-Portuguese factions of the Kotte Kingdom, such as the chieftains from Sitawaka. The Jaffna Kingdom also functioned as a logistical base for the Kandyan Kingdom, located in the Central Highlands without access to any seaports, as an entrepot for military aid arriving from South India. Further, due to its strategic location, it was feared that the Jaffna Kingdom may become a beachhead for the Dutch landings. It was King Ankili I who resisted contacts with the Portuguese and even massacred 600 to 700 Parava Catholics in the island of Mannar. These Catholics were brought from India to Manor to take over the lucrative pearl fisheries from the Jaffna kings. Clients state the first expedition led by Viceroy Dom Constantino de Braganca in 1560 failed to subdue the kingdom but wrested the Manor Island from it. Although the circumstances are unclear, by 1582 the Jaffna king was paying a tribute of 10 elephants, or an equivalent in cash. In 1591, during the second expedition led by André Furtado de Mendoza, King Pavarasa Pandaram was killed and his son Ethiri Mana Singam was installed as the monarch. This arrangement gave the Catholic missionaries freedom and monopoly in elephant export to the Portuguese, which the incumbent king however resisted. He helped the Pandyan Kingdom under Kings Vimaladama Surya and Senara during the period 1593 to 1635 with the intent of securing help from South India to resist the Portuguese. He however maintained autonomy of the kingdom without overtly provoking the Portuguese. Kankili to the unspa with the death of Ethiraman of Singam in 1617. Kankili II, a usurper, took control of the throne after killing the regent nominated by the late king. Unable to secure Portuguese acceptance of his kingship, Kankili II invited military aid from the Thanjavur Naiks and allowed corsairs from Malabar to use a base in Naduntivu, hence posting a threat to Portuguese shipping routes through Palk Strait. Kankili II was supported by the Kandy rulers. After the fall of the Jaffna kingdom, the two unnamed princesses of Jaffna had been married to Senarat's stepsons, Kumarasinghe and Vijayapala. Kankili II expectedly received military aid from the Thanjavur Nayak kingdom. On his part, Raghunath the Nayak of Thanjavur made attempts to recover the Jaffna kingdom for his protege, the Prince of Rameshwaram. However, all attempts to recover the Jaffna kingdom from the Portuguese met with failure. By June 1619, there were two Portuguese expeditions, a naval expedition that was repulsed by the Malabari corsairs and another expedition by Felipe de Oliveira and his 5,000-strong land army which was able to inflict defeat on Kankili II. Kankili, along with every surviving member of the royal family, were captured and taken to Goa, where he was hanged to death. The remaining captives were encouraged to become monks and nuns in the holy orders, and as most obliged, it avoided further claimants to the Jaffna throne. Administration. According to Ibn Battuta, a traveling Moroccan historian of note, by 1344, the kingdom had two capitals, one in Nalur in the north and the other in Putlam in the west. During the pearling season, the kingdom proper, that is the Jaffna peninsula, was divided into various provinces with subdivisions of Paris meaning property, larger territorial units and villages. The smallest unit was administered on a hierarchical and regional basis. At the summit was the king, whose kingship was hereditary. He was usually succeeded by his eldest son. Next in the hierarchy stood the adhikaris, who were the provincial administrators. Then came the mudaliars, who functioned as judges and interpreters of the laws and customs of the land. It was also their duty to gather information of whatever was happening in the provinces and report to higher authorities. Administrators of revenues called kanganis are superintendents, and kanakapilis or accountants came next in line. These were also known as pandarapillai. They had to keep records and maintain accounts. Maniam was the chief of the Paris. He was assisted by mudaliars, who were in turn assisted by udayas, persons of authority over a village or a group of villages. They were the custodians of law and order and gave assistance to survey land and collect revenues in the area under the control. The village headman was called talayiri. Padankadi or Adapna, and he assisted in the collection of taxes and was responsible for the maintenance of order in his territorial unit. In addition, each caste had a chief who supervised the performance of caste obligations and duties. Relationship with feudatories. Vaname were regions south of the Jaffna Peninsula in the present-day north central and eastern provinces and were sparsely settled by people. They were ruled by petty chiefs calling themselves Vanya. Vaname just south of the Jaffna Peninsula and in the eastern Trincomalee district usually paid an annual tribute to the Jaffna Kingdom instead of taxes. The tribute was in cash, grains, honey, elephants, and ivory. The annual tribute system was enforced due to the greater distance from Jaffna. During the early and middle part of the 14th century, the Sinhalese kingdoms in western, southern and central part of the island also became feudatories until the kingdom itself was briefly occupied by the forces of Parakramabahu around 1450 for about 17 years. Around the early 17th century, the kingdom also administered an exclave in southern India called Madurai. Economy. The economy of the kingdom was almost exclusively based on subsistence agriculture until the 15th century. After the 15th century, however, the economy became diversified and commercialized as it became incorporated into the expanding Indian Ocean. Ibn Battuta, during his visit in 1344, observed that the kingdom of Jaffna was a major trading kingdom with extensive overseas contacts. The kingdom's trades were oriented towards maritime South India, with which it developed a commercial interdependence. The non-agriculture tradition of the kingdom became strong as a result of large coastal fishing and boating population and growing opportunities for seaborne commerce. Influential commercial groups, drawn mainly from South Indian mercantile groups as well as other, resided in the royal capital, port, and market centers. Artisan settlements were also established and groups of skilled tradesmen, carpenters, stonemasons, weavers, dryers, gold and silversmiths, resided in urban centers. Thus, a pluralistic socio-economic tradition of agriculture, marine activities, commerce and handicraft production was well established. Jaffna Kingdom was less feudalized than other kingdoms in Sri Lanka, such as Kotte and Kandy. Its economy was based on more money transactions than transactions on land or its produce. The Jaffna defense forces were not feudal levies. Soldiers in the king's service were paid in cash. The king's officials, namely Mudaliarayas, were also paid in cash, and the numerous Hindu temples seem not to have owned extensive properties. Unlike the Buddhist establishments in the south, temples and the administrators depended on the king and the worshippers for their upkeep. Royal and army officials were thus a salaried class, and these three institutions consumed over 60% of the revenues of the kingdom and 85% of the government expenditures. Much of the kingdom's revenues also came from cash except the elephants from the Vani feudatories. At the time of the conquest by the Portuguese in 1620, the kingdom, which was truncated in size and restricted to the Jaffna Peninsula, had revenues of 11,700 pardaus, of which 97% came from land or sources connected to the land. One was called land rent and another called paddy tax, called irretain. Apart from the land-related taxes, there were other taxes, such as garden tax from compounds where, among others, plantain, coconut and arecanut palms were grown and irrigated by water from the well. Tree tax on trees such as palmyra, margosa and ilapine. Poll tax equivalent to a personal tax from each. Professional tax was collected from members of each caste, a guild, and commercial taxes consisting of, among others, stamp duty on clothes, Taraka levy on items of food, and port and customs duties. Columbathorai, which connected the peninsula with the mainland at Punakari with its boat services, was one of the chief ports, and there were customs check posts at the sand passes of Bachilipalai. Elephants from the southern Sinhalese kingdoms and the Vani region were brought to Jaffna to be sold to foreign buyers. They were shipped abroad from a bay called Aryacakravarti, which is now called Cates, a shortened form of Portuguese Caes dos Elefantes. Perhaps a peculiarity of Jaffna was the levy of license fee for the cremation of the dead. Not all payments in kind were converted to cash. Offerings of rice, bananas, milk, dried fish, game meat and curd persisted. Some inhabitants also had to render unpaid personal services called uliyim. The kings also issued many types of coins for circulation. Several types of coins, categorized as Sethubal coins, issued from 1284 to 1410 are found in large quantities in the northern part of Sri Lanka. The obverse of these coins have a human figure flanked by lamps, and the reverse has the Nandi symbol, the legend Setu in Tamil, with a crescent moon above.